You see, when I'm in front of a wonderful, wonderful group of people like you, you have a lot to say. But if we want to have time for your questions and my answers, we got to say no speeches. All right? Is that okay with you? Okay. Okay. And I apologize in advance. So we're going to have questions, just questions, and no speeches, and then answers. And if I don't have an answer for your question, I'll just make up a question and then I'll answer it. And I'll repeat your question. So let's start with this gentleman right here. Can I tell you how? Oh, how to get the bullies out of the filibuster? Well, look, one of the things that has to be done is to get rid of the filibuster altogether. The Founding Fathers, let's be clear about this. The Founding Fathers did not put the filibuster in the Constitution. There was no provision in the Constitution that says you've got to have 60 votes in the Senate in order to get anything through the Senate. There's no provision in the Constitution that says the people in the House of Representatives can threaten to close government down and even threaten the full faith and credit of the United States if they don't get their way. The Constitution does not contemplate that. The Founding Fathers did not contemplate it. Let's get back. You want to be conservative? You want to be really conservative? You want to go back to the Founding Fathers? Then go back there and let's have a real democracy. And by the way, unfortunately, the Founding Fathers did not contemplate the kind of democracy we should have in every respect. Yes. What can we do about Citizens United is the question. Well, here's what we can do about Citizens United. We can dedicate ourselves to making sure that when one of those 5 justices who voted for that outrageous Citizens United case either retires or leaves or dies, that he or she is replaced, it is he, is replaced with somebody who is absolutely committed to overturning and overruling Citizens United. And that means, at the very least, in fact, it means definitely, we have got to have Barack Obama president of the United States so that he can make sure that we get decent Supreme Court justices in there. Yes. How do we get decent people to run for office so we can get these jerks, that was what you said, out of there? Look, how many of you have run for office? How many of you have run for political office? Okay, keep your hands up and let's everybody else applaud the people who have run for office. It is no fun, in most cases, to run for office. It is very hard. I ran for governor of Massachusetts in 2002. Had I won, this is out of 6 Democratic candidates, I came in a close second. If I had won, I'd run against the Republican nominee who was Mitt Romney. I would have whipped his ass. And if he becomes president, I have nobody but me to blame. But let me tell you something seriously, and that is, I have been around politicians my whole life, but I learned by doing it to respect politicians much, much more. Anybody who runs for office knows how difficult it is. You've got to kiss ass. You've got to, yeah, a lot of it. You've got to raise money. You've got to really deal with people who are very demanding, and you've got to explain reality in ways where the burden of proof is against you, because they are saying to you, well, why should I vote for you? And when people are scared, and this is true now, when people are scared, they are fertile ground for demagogues. who want to come along and use the politics of resentment to blame scapegoats, to blame immigrants, to blame the poor, to blame minorities, to blame foreigners, to blame Europeans, the French. You remember that? To blame unionized workers, to blame government workers, to blame public employees. The politics of blame knows no end. So I say to you, run. Do it again. Keep in your fourth term. You are in your fourth term? Where are you in your fourth term? Where? New Hampshire House of Representatives. That is marvelous. By the way, I spent many of my formative years in New Hampshire. In New Hampshire, the New Hampshire House of Representatives is one of the largest legislative bodies in the world. In fact, it's the only state where every family has a representative. No, that's not true, is it? Okay, other questions? Yes.
I have a mic, so everyone will be able to hear you.
Yeah.
I'm Crazy Kay from Kansas, and I'm wanting to go back. I'm wanting to go back to Kansas and really hit the ground running with my group of Move On community. What do you recommend should be our top priority right now in the economics, in the jobs? What would you do if you went back to Kansas?
I think, as I said, I think the top priority in the short term, in the very short term, is to get the jobs bill enacted. That's the number one short-term priority. But right behind that jobs bill priority is to create enough pressure, enough organizing, mobilizing, energizing of the base, whether we're talking about the Democratic base or the progressive base or Americans overall as a base, to get a bigger jobs bill, a more powerful jobs bill, and also to avoid some of the crazy cuts that are going to happen. I mean, what's going to happen now? You've got a super committee that is going to report back in not that many weeks. And if it comes up with cuts, you know that a lot of those cuts are going to be in domestic, non-defense discretionary spending. And even if they don't agree, the automatic trigger is going to trigger cuts in non-defense domestic discretionary. Now, I ask you, I said before, 37% of American families with young children are in poverty. Where are the federal programs that help that 37% in non-defense domestic discretionary? And I haven't even said anything about the state cuts and the local cuts. You know, it's like a cascade downward of cuts. I mean, what's happening at the local level, you know, you people in your towns, you know what's happening. Teachers being fired, school days being shortened, social workers being fired, family services being cut. Why? The local governments can't do it. They say we're not getting any aid from the states. The state governments say we can't do it. We're not getting any help from the federal government. That cascade downward is not being told. That story is not being told. You need to tell that story. Yes, sir.
Is it on? Okay. I'm David Cooper, Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I'm a college professor like you, only I teach philosophy. I need data. You talked about scapegoats a minute ago. I get so many students who tell me they're tired of welfare mothers getting all this help, when in Upper Peninsula they're struggling for jobs, so they're scapegoating. But you gave us data earlier on the transfer of wealth since the Reagan era in terms of the 1%. Do you have any data on what it's been like for welfare mothers in that same period of time?
I'm sorry, data on? Yeah. What's happened, you know, ever since so-called welfare reform in 1996, we had a replacement of welfare reform, so-called, with a 5-year lifetime entitlement. 5-year lifetime. Now that's okay as long as you don't have a lot of big, long recessions, but what we are now seeing is that a lot of those people who are very poor in our society are exhausting that 5-year lifetime because the Great Recession is actually a great jobs and wage depression for a large portion of the population, and that started in about 2008 for most people. It is now 2011, 8, 9, 10, 11. You see how many people are getting to the end. Here's another related issue. Employment benefits, unemployment benefits, that so many people are relying on. Unemployment benefits, at best, reach 40% of the unemployed. You see, 60% of the people who have lost their jobs don't get any unemployment benefits at all. In Congress, they're saying we don't want to extend unemployment benefits. You know, I talked to some of the radical conservatives in Congress. They say we're not going to extend unemployment benefits because if you extend unemployment benefits, people would rather stay not working than they would working. Now, when there are actually right now it is 4.3 people looking for work for every job opening, how can you say that if you extend unemployment benefits, you are going to encourage people not to work? Right now, the safety nets of America are torn and shredded at a time when we need them to be strong and solid more than ever before. And so one of the additional things to organize around is to make sure that when people fall out, and a lot of people are falling out right now, it's not just the poor, it is the middle class, everybody is falling through the cracks, make sure that there's enough of a safety net there so that they can bounce back. This is critically important, and it's good for the economy too. This is not just a matter of generosity. Because if they don't have any money in their pockets, they can't buy the food and the clothing and everything else they need to buy to keep the private sector going and to keep jobs. You see, we're all in it together. Yes, oh, there is actually a queue, a line there. I didn't see you. Yes, please, go ahead.
Secretary Reich, thanks so much for your passion and your heart this afternoon. I think it's vital that we all leave here with a common message, that which conservatives have had since, let's say, Goldwater, reducing government, government is bad. I'd like to try on you something that I've been thinking about, and please give me your understanding on framing, what your frame would be. And my frame is the common good versus corporate greed, or the public good, that which we pay for with our taxes, versus private greed.
Well, another way of saying that is something that Al Gore said in the last month of his campaign in 2000. You know, Al Gore, the person who won the presidential election in 2000? And in that last month, his ratings started to go up because he started to talk about a reality that many people understood in the depths of their being, and that is the people versus the powerful. The people versus the powerful. It is nothing wrong in having a lot of money in this country, but there's a lot of wrong in abusing that money. And you see, if you're looking for a way of framing, another way of saying it is